The most dangerous mystery is the person who doesn't announce their power. They just appear with results nobody can explain. That's you. You became the quiet storm they never saw coming. You weren't loud, you weren't chasing attention, and that's exactly why people can't stop watching you now. You've turned into a human riddle that's keeping entire groups awake at night. It's not just curiosity anymore, it's obsession. Because people hate what they can't predict, and you, chosen one, are suddenly unpredictable. You've mastered the art of moving in silence while shaking the entire ground under their feet. It's like they blinked, and suddenly you were 10 steps ahead. You didn't post your progress, you didn't brag, you didn't even warn them. You just showed up one day, radiating calm confidence, and that scared them more than any announcement ever could. To them, it feels supernatural, like you found a secret portal that bypassed the struggle they're still stuck in. But it's not magic, it's energy. You've been investing quietly while they were performing loudly. You were working in the shadows while they were addicted to being seen. That's the trick most people miss. Success built in silence grows roots so deep that no storm can shake it. Here's a fact that burns them inside. Studies show that people fear what they can't define. Psychologists call it the uncertainty effect. The human brain literally becomes stressed when it can't predict someone's next move. And that's you right now. You've become their mental maze, the glitch in their control system. They used to think they could read you. Now, your silence feels like a threat. They whisper things like, something's off about them. But what they really mean is, they've evolved beyond what I can understand. You are the walking proof that power doesn't have to announce itself. It just has to exist. And thank you, chosen one. Don't forget to pay this message back by simply pressing the like and subscribe to help spread this message to more souls. It's the responsibility of all of us to spread the light, to wake up those who are walking blind in a world that loves illusions. Thank you, chosen one, for being part of this mission. You're part of a force, and your presence here means you've already broken through one layer of the matrix. Now, let's get back to it. People are trying to figure you out because your growth doesn't make sense in their logic. They live by shortcuts, validation, and performance, while you live by alignment, self-respect, and consistency. You don't chase, you attract. You don't explain, you execute. And that simplicity is confusing to people who survive off drama. You're not playing their game anymore, and that's what's driving them crazy. The universe has been using your silence as a mirror, showing them everything they could have been if they'd chosen peace over noise. You see, most people build an image, but you built substance. They wanted followers. You wanted freedom. They wanted applause. You wanted mastery. And now that you have it, they're scrambling to decode a process that only the authentic can understand. It's funny how energy works. When you were struggling, they were comfortable ignoring you. But now that you're calm, focused, and glowing differently, everyone suddenly wants to understand you. They frame it as curiosity, but it's really disbelief mixed with jealousy. They can't grasp how you pulled it off without betraying yourself, without playing dirty, without begging for help. They can't believe you rose without noise, without followers, without fake smiles. It's like watching a plot twist in a movie they didn't write, and they can't handle it. Let's be real, the world has trained people to underestimate quiet ones. They think silence means weakness, but you've proven silence is strategy. You've shown that discipline can make more noise than gossip ever could. You've become living proof that while they were performing for likes, you were aligning with purpose. And when results finally showed up, they didn't come dressed in noise, they came dressed in proof. That's why people are circling back now, studying your every move, trying to copy your rhythm. But what they don't realize is that your success isn't a formula. It's a frequency. You had to break, rebuild, and rewire to reach this vibration. That can't be copied. It has to be earned. They say, you've changed, but what really happened is you outgrew their limits. You became too real for environments built on fakery, and that's what they're trying to figure out. Not how you did it, but how you stayed pure while everyone else got lost chasing validation. They're analyzing your calm, your glow, your peace. They can sense there's something rare about you, something that can't be explained, only felt. You've become their mirror and their mystery, and that combination terrifies them, because here's the truth: you didn't pull this off overnight. You endured nights of silence, doubt, and loneliness. You chose inner work when everyone else chose distractions. You focused on evolving instead of proving. That's what built the version of you that stands tall now, the version that makes people whisper instead of laugh. The version that turned every "you'll never make it" into fuel. That's the energy they feel but can't label. It's what makes people say, there's something different about them, without realizing that something is unshakable self-trust. Your presence now carries power. You walk into rooms and shift the mood without saying a word. You're not trying to be seen, you're just being, and that's what makes people's masks fall off. They can't fake calm around you. They can't lie easily. You expose truth by simply existing. That's what makes them uncomfortable, because deep down they know they can't match your peace. They've built their lives on noise, and your quiet confidence ruins their illusion. You're what happens when the universe decides to balance the scales. When those who were laughed at become the ones everyone watches. So don't be surprised if people keep studying you, chosen one. They'll try to copy your language, your habits, even your tone, but they'll still miss the essence, because the essence isn't what you do, it's who you've become. You've become someone the old world can't categorize. You're not an influencer, you're an influence. You're not a trend, you're a transformation. They can't figure you out because you've transcended their need for understanding. And that's the beauty of it. You don't owe them clarity. You owe yourself peace. Let them guess. Let them scroll. Let them talk. Because the more they try to figure you out, the more they'll realize you were never playing their game in the first place. You were building something real, something they can't decode, duplicate, or destroy. You've pulled off the ultimate move. You became undeniable without ever needing to explain a thing. And hey, chosen one, thank you for being here and for proving that silence can be louder than any spotlight. What's coming next will explain exactly why people can't stop trying to figure you out and why they'll never succeed. So don't move just yet. If you've ever felt misunderstood, studied, or underestimated, this message is going to feel personal, because it is. Drop a comment below with the number 777 if you're ready to let them keep guessing while you keep growing. And if you can, bless the team behind this message with a super thanks, because every bit of your support helps keep these truths alive and shining across the universe. Whether it's a small gesture or a big one, it pushes this mission further. The mission to awaken those who are quietly rising, just like you. Now, take a deep breath, chosen one, because what comes next will reveal exactly how you pulled this off and why they're still losing sleep over you. Let's dive in, step by step. Number 1. They're trying to crack your code, but you're the glitch they'll never decode. They tried to study you like a pattern, but ended up realizing you were the whole equation they could never solve. That's what burns them the most. You didn't just break their rules, you proved their entire system was flawed. The people who once rolled their eyes at your silence are now squinting through it, trying to understand how you managed to win a race you never even announced you were running. They don't get it, how someone they dismissed, ignored, or laughed at is now outpacing everyone who was doing everything right. But what they called right was never right. It was rehearsed. And that's the part that's tearing them apart inside. See, you were never supposed to win in their version of the story. By their blueprint, you didn't fit the mold. You weren't loud enough, fake enough, or connected enough. You didn't sell your soul to fit in, or sacrifice your peace to be accepted. You didn't bow to their illusion of power, and that's why the universe handed you real power. You stayed invisible long enough for your silence to become your weapon, and now they're sitting in confusion, realizing they underestimated someone who was never seeking validation in the first place. Here's the irony. The very people who thought they were smarter than you are now obsessing over your every move, like analysts dissecting a mystery that doesn't make sense on paper. They scroll through your life, comparing notes, whispering in circles, and making theories about your rise. There's no way they did it alone, they say. Someone must be backing them. No, no one was backing you. You were carrying yourself when no one clapped, believing in something they couldn't see. That's why they'll never figure it out, because what you built was born in a realm they don't even operate in. Let's tell the truth. These people lived by shortcuts and staged perfection. They learned manipulation as a language, flattery as a survival skill. But you built through discipline, authenticity, and isolation. You were the one fixing your own cracks while they were busy painting over theirs. They built walls, you built foundations. They wanted recognition, you wanted results. And now that your results are visible, they can't accept that integrity beat illusion. That's why they're obsessed. Your success shattered their understanding of how things are supposed to work. Think of it like this. They were studying the surface of the ocean, counting waves, predicting tides, thinking they understood it. But you were the deep current beneath it all, unseen but unstoppable. And now that you've surfaced, the shock on their faces says it all. You didn't rise for applause, you rose because it was time. And now every insecure person who once mocked your silence is questioning their entire identity. That's what true power does. It exposes false power without saying a word. They'll never admit it, but every time your name comes up, the room shifts. Their ego twitches, their energy changes, because your glow reminds them of everything they could have been if they'd chosen self-respect over shortcuts. You're not just a mystery to them, you're a mirror. And mirrors don't lie. They're not really studying you, they're studying their own reflection, asking, where did I go wrong? But deep down, they already know. You did what they were too afraid to do. You stayed real when fakeness was trending. Let's address what they're really thinking. How did you pull it off without pretending? That's the question that keeps them up at night. They were taught that you have to kiss up, lie down, and fit in to make it. But you proved that solitude can be strategy and authenticity can be armor. They don't want to believe it's that simple, because that would mean everything they built on deception has no real value. And that's the punch that hurts them most. You've become living evidence that peace and power can exist together, that you don't have to lose your soul to win. They're searching for your secret like it's hidden somewhere in your posts, your words, your pictures. But what they'll never understand is that your secret isn't visible. It's internal. It's your resilience, your energy, your refusal to bend when life tried to break you. They can copy your style, your habits, even your language, but they'll never replicate your vibration, because that came from nights they didn't see, from pain they didn't feel, from choices they were too weak to make. Here's a psychological fact they'd hate to hear. When people can't understand your success, they feel safer believing it's fake. That's why they gossip. It's self-protection. They'd rather convince themselves you cheated than accept that you evolved. But what they call luck is simply alignment. What they call mystery is your mastery, and what they call weird energy is just you being free, something they've never been. It's brutal, but the truth is, they're not just jealous of what you achieved. They're jealous of how you achieved it. You didn't beg, you didn't chase, you didn't betray yourself, and still, you got what they wanted. That's why it feels unfair to them. They think life plays by their rules, but you proved that authenticity rewrites every rule. You've become the glitch in their system, the proof that the universe rewards those who choose alignment over attention. So let them study you, let them replay your moves like detectives stuck on a mystery that keeps rewriting itself. Because the more they study, the more they'll realize it's not what you did that made you powerful. It's who you became while doing it. They're trying to crack your code without realizing they're missing the key. Your character. That's the part they'll never hack, because character can't be downloaded. It's developed through pain, patience, and persistence. You were supposed to be the underdog, and that's what makes your rise so satisfying. Every time they think they've figured you out, you evolve again. Every time they predict your next step, you disappear into silence and come back stronger. You are their unsolved equation, their living paradox, their reminder that truth will always outlast performance. So when they watch you, whisper about you, or secretly envy your calm, remember this: their confusion is proof of your transformation. You've become the person they said you'd never be, and now they're trapped trying to understand how you did it without becoming them. So, chosen one, let them keep guessing, let them scroll, gossip, and spiral, because every minute they spend trying to decode you is another reminder that you've risen beyond their reach. You broke their algorithm, rewrote their script, and became the story they'll never fully understand. And that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Number 2, you turned pain into power, while they let theirs turn into poison. Some drown in the storm, others learn how to breathe underwater. That's the truth they don't want to face. Everyone gets hurt, but not everyone transforms that hurt into strength. They thought the pain would break you, silence you, maybe even erase you. But it became your greatest education. You learned to let pain teach you instead of letting it define you, and that's what they'll never understand. You're not shining because life spared you. You're shining because you refused to stay in the dark when it didn't. Pain either becomes your prison or your professor. Most people choose prison. They lock themselves in their bitterness, replaying the same betrayals, feeding the same grudges, clinging to the story of how unfair life was. But you sat in that pain and said, "What is this trying to teach me?" You faced the ugly truth without sugarcoating it. You felt everything you had to feel, no shortcuts, no numbness. You let the pain rebuild your perception, brick by brick, tear by tear. That's why you walk with a calm they can't fake. Because every part of your peace was paid for in pain. Imagine this: 2 people fall into the same fire. One thrashes, curses, and blames the flames until they burn completely. The other studies the fire, learns its heat, its timing, its rhythm, and then walks out knowing exactly how to control it next time. That's you, chosen one. You didn't just survive the flames, you mastered them. You're not burned, you're branded by resilience. And now when people look at you, they can't tell if what they're seeing is beauty or battle scars. The truth? It's both. They ask, How did you pull this off after everything that happened? They expect you to be broken, bitter, distant, but you're glowing, calm, untouchable. You're not pretending to be healed, you are healed, and that's what stings them. Because they went through pain too, but instead of learning from it, they let it control them. They wore their trauma like a crown, as if suffering made them special. But pain doesn't make you powerful. What you do with it does. You didn't romanticize the wound, you closed it. You didn't use your hurt to justify your darkness. You used it to find your light. The difference between you and them is that they looked at pain and said, "Why me?" You looked at it and said, "Try me." That's the mindset that turned your suffering into strategy. You realized pain wasn't punishment, it was preparation. It was showing you who you were when everything fell apart. It was stripping away illusions so the real you could stand uncovered. That's why your energy feels so different now. It's purified. You've been through the emotional fire that melts weakness into wisdom. Imagine this. Life threw rocks at you, and instead of throwing them back, you built a throne. Every betrayal became a brick. Every heartbreak became armor. Every disappointment became direction. You didn't react, you reconstructed. And now, the same people who threw stones are standing below, squinting up at the castle they accidentally helped you build. That's poetic justice, isn't it? They fed your pain, thinking it would starve your spirit, not realizing it was nourishing your evolution. Let's be real. You didn't go through easy pain. You went through the kind of pain that made your soul question its purpose, the kind that made nights stretch into months, the kind that could have made anyone else bitter, but instead, it made you brilliant. You learned to stop asking, "Why me?" and started asking, "What now?" You became emotionally self-aware in a world that rewards numbness. You developed emotional discipline when others were busy escaping theirs through distractions. You faced the darkness until it had nothing left to threaten you with. That's not luck, that's mastery. Here's what confuses them. They saw you broken once, and they froze you there. In their mind, you weren't supposed to recover. You were supposed to stay the version of you that cried, begged, doubted. They didn't expect a rebirth. So when you came back, sharper, calmer, wiser, it broke something in them. Because your evolution proves that healing is a choice. You didn't wait for closure, you created it. You didn't need revenge, you outgrew the need for it. You didn't collapse under pressure, you used it as resistance training for your spirit. Imagine this, a diamond and a piece of glass both look similar until pressure is applied. That's when the difference shows. You were under pressure, but instead of shattering, you crystallized. You became valuable in silence, unbreakable through suffering. That's why they stare now, not because you're perfect, but because you made pain look purposeful. They can't comprehend how something so destructive became your source of discipline. They let pain poison their hearts. You let it polish your soul. That's the real distinction. While they're still replaying betrayals in their head, you've turned yours into motivation. While they're still talking about who hurt them, you've already built something that can't be taken from you. You learned that closure doesn't come from apology, it comes from acceptance. You stopped trying to rewrite what happened and started rewriting who you are because of it. That's a level of maturity that threatens people who cling to victimhood. Let's answer the question they secretly ask. Why them? Why do they keep growing no matter what happens? The answer is simple, because you stopped expecting life to be fair. You accepted pain as part of your curriculum. You let it sharpen your intuition, deepen your compassion, strengthen your patience. You made peace with not getting every answer. You learned how to move forward without needing validation. You realized pain doesn't end when you avoid it. It ends when you outgrow it. That's the difference between those who evolve and those who decay. Imagine this. Two seeds are buried in the same dirt. One rots because it can't handle the darkness. The other uses the same darkness to sprout roots. Both experienced pressure, but only one understood its purpose. That's you, the seed that didn't rot. You let the dirt teach you, not drown you. And now you're growing in places where no one expected life to exist. That's what makes your story beautiful, and why it drives your enemies mad. They don't see the nights you cried, the days you doubted, the internal battles you fought. They only see the bloom, not the burial. They clap for your glow, but they'll never understand your grit. They want your strength, but not your story. They crave your peace, but not your process. And that's fine, because your pain wasn't meant for their understanding. It was meant for your awakening. You didn't pull this off because life was easy. You pulled it off because you let life educate you. You became fluent in the language of loss and learned how to translate it into purpose. What they call scars, the universe calls signatures. Every mark, every wound, every fall was evidence that you lived fully and rose anyway. So, chosen one, never shrink to make your strength more palatable. Let them wonder how you did it. Let them replay your pain in their heads like detectives searching for clues. Because no matter how much they study you, they'll never replicate your resilience. You didn't become powerful in spite of the pain. You became powerful because of it. So the next time someone looks at you in disbelief, remember this: their confusion is your confirmation. You're not just a survivor of pain, you're a graduate of it. You've earned your calm, you've earned your glow. And while they're still letting their pain poison their potential, you've already learned the art of turning suffering into strength. You didn't just pull it off, you transcended it. Number 3. You went silent, not because you were lost, but because you were leveling up. The loudest people in the room are usually the ones with the least to show. The real builders make noise only when it's done. That's what they never understood about you. You didn't go quiet because you were defeated. You went quiet because you were becoming. You weren't retreating, you were recalibrating. While they mistook your stillness for weakness, you were in the middle of a transformation so deep, the universe had to mute the noise around you just so you could hear yourself think. Imagine this: a seed buried underground. To the surface, it looks like nothing's happening, but inside that darkness, pressure is splitting it open so new life can emerge. That's what your silence was, the soil phase. You were being restructured, rewired, refined. The people watching from above only saw stillness. They never saw the storm happening inside. And now that you've broken through, they're staring in disbelief because you grew roots before you showed leaves. You weren't trying to be mysterious, you were protecting your process. You realize something they never will: energy leaks through exposure. Every time you talk too soon, you invite doubt. Every time you explain too much, you invite interference. So you learned to let your progress speak for itself. While they were showing off their half-built empires, you were perfecting the foundation. While they needed eyes on them to stay motivated, you learned how to move without applause. That's why your wins hit harder, because nobody saw them coming. Silence isn't emptiness, it's incubation. You were being stripped of people who couldn't grow with you, habits that couldn't serve you, and environments that couldn't contain you. It felt lonely at times, didn't it? The isolation, the misunderstandings, the rumors, all of it. But that's how the universe works. Before it elevates you, it isolates you. Because noise can't exist where truth is forming. You had to disappear to discover who you are without distractions. That's the part people will never understand. Your quiet wasn't a pause, it was a preparation. They measured your absence by silence, not realizing silence was the work. While they posted, you practiced. While they talked, you transformed. They thought you were irrelevant because you weren't visible, but the truth is, relevance built on noise fades. Relevance built on depth echoes forever. You didn't need their validation because you had vision. You weren't chasing followers, you were building frequency. You understood something crucial. Real power doesn't need to be announced. It reveals itself when the timing aligns. Imagine this. A volcano looks calm for years, but underground, pressure is building, magma is forming, waiting for the perfect moment to erupt. That's been you. They confused your quiet for dormancy, but you were gathering force. And now that you've erupted, the shockwave has everyone spinning, asking, where did this come from? It came from patience. It came from faith in the unseen. It came from the discipline to stay silent while others performed. They thought your silence was a sign of failure, but it was really the sound of focus. You didn't skip steps, you just took them in private. You didn't crave visibility, you craved victory. That's why you don't owe anyone an explanation now. Let them believe you came out of nowhere. It's better that way, because those who can't sit with silence will never understand power that grows without applause. You see, people addicted to attention can't fathom that silence can be sacred. They think movement only counts if it's seen. But your kind of movement, it's internal, it's spiritual, it's invisible until it's undeniable. That's why they're so rattled now. They can't trace your steps because you stopped leaving footprints the moment you outgrew their level. And now that you've re-emerged, they're scrambling to explain it. They'll call it luck, timing, coincidence, anything but what it really is: alignment. They can't admit that while they were busy performing, you were preparing. While they were chasing relevance, you were mastering resilience. You didn't rush the process, you respected it. And the universe rewards that kind of patience every single time. So let them wonder. Let them study your silence like it's some mysterious art, because the truth is, it was never silence. It was sacred construction. You weren't gone, you were growing. You weren't lost, you were leveling up. And now, chosen one, the echoes of that quiet season are so loud, they can't ignore them even if they try. Number 4. You didn't win overnight. You survived long enough to deserve it. You didn't climb the mountain because you were fearless. You climbed it shaking, bleeding and tired, but you never stopped. That's the truth they refuse to see. They look at your results and assume it was a straight path, a lucky break, a clean victory. But what they call success was actually survival. You didn't pull it off, you endured until it happened. Every inch of your rise was earned in silence, in pain, in persistence. You were fighting invisible wars while they were counting visible wins. People love to praise outcomes, but they never honor endurance. They want to believe you had a secret, something easy to replicate, something they can copy. But what you had can't be copied, it can only be lived. You didn't master shortcuts, you mastered suffering. You didn't skip steps, you stumbled through every one of them with grit in your teeth and fire in your chest. And still, you moved. You kept moving when your legs felt like lead, when hope felt like fiction, when everything inside you whispered, maybe this isn't meant for you. Imagine this: a boxer in the final round, bruised, half-conscious, but still swinging, not because he thinks he'll win, but because he refuses to fall. That's you. You didn't wait for perfect timing, perfect strength, or perfect faith. You fought through exhaustion and disbelief, through doors that slammed shut and nights that didn't end. That's what they'll never grasp. You were breaking, but you kept building anyway. Endurance is doing what most people quit doing long after the applause has stopped. There were no cameras in your struggle, no audience, no reassurance, just you, your pain, and the quiet whisper saying, "Hold on." And you did. That's the real miracle, not that it manifested, but that you stayed alive long enough for it to. The glow they see now isn't confidence, it's battle fatigue turned into calm. It's your nervous system learning peace after years of chaos. They don't realize your story wasn't built from luck, it was forged from breakdowns that would have destroyed anyone else. They think you had momentum, but you had to create your own wind when everything went still. They see strength, but they don't see the weakness it took to build it. The nights you begged for a sign, the mornings you got up anyway. That's endurance, not glamorous, not pretty, just relentless survival dressed as resilience. Imagine standing in a storm so long that lightning starts to feel normal. That was your life for a while. And yet, instead of cursing the sky, you learned how to dance in the thunder. You took chaos and used it as rhythm. That's what separates you from them. You didn't let the storm define you. You became the calm within it. You didn't run from the pain. You let it sculpt you. That's what makes you dangerous now. They thought you were strong because you didn't break. They never realized strength is what you built after you did. You shattered 100 times, and each time you picked up a different piece of yourself. That's how you became whole. Not through perfection, but through persistence. You weren't reborn in comfort. You were rebuilt in crisis. You learned how to crawl through disappointment and still look graceful at the finish line. That's not luck. That's legacy. Now, people want the glory without the grit. They want the crown without the crawl. But your path wasn't polished. It was painful, raw, and unfiltered. You didn't get stronger by choice. You got stronger because you had no other option. The universe tested you until breaking became boring, and you finally realized you could endure anything. That's when everything started to shift. They ask, "How did you do it?" hoping for a formula. But endurance isn't formula, it's faith. It's continuing when your logic says stop. It's choosing to rise again, even when there's no reason left. It's believing the finish line exists, even when you can't see it. You weren't lucky. You were stubborn. You refused to die in a place you were only meant to pass through. And that's why you're here now, glowing, grounded, unbothered, because you didn't chase miracles. You became one. The real victory isn't what you gained, it's that you made it through without losing your humanity. While others folded under pressure, you unfolded into purpose. That's the kind of success they'll never understand. The quiet kind, the patient kind, the kind that looks like failure until it wins. So let them think you pulled it off. Let them guess at your secret. The truth is, you didn't have one. You just refused to quit. You survived long enough to be seen, and that, chosen one, is what makes your story legendary. Number 5. You stopped begging for seats, and the universe built you a table. When you stop knocking on locked doors, life stops mistaking you for someone desperate. That's the moment everything changed for you. You stopped trying to earn entry into places that weren't aligned with your spirit. You stopped twisting yourself into smaller shapes just to be digestible for people with fragile egos. There was a time when you believed humility meant shrinking, when you confused tolerance with acceptance, but that version of you no longer exists. The breaking point came quietly, the day you realized peace costs less than approval. At first, it confused people. They thought your distance was arrogance, but it was clarity. You weren't cold, you were cured. You stopped seeking validation from people who only valued you when you were easy to use. And the moment you detached from their opinions, your energy shifted frequencies. The universe started opening doors that no amount of people-pleasing ever could. That's what they can't comprehend. Your access didn't come from kissing rings. It came from keeping boundaries. You stopped chasing the wrong yes, and suddenly the right opportunities started chasing you. Approval is rented. Alignment is owned. They never taught you that. For so long, you mistook rejection for failure, not realizing it was redirection. Imagine this. You're trying to fit through a doorway that's too small for your destiny. You keep bending, apologizing, shrinking, until one day you finally stand up straight, and the door breaks instead. That's what happened. You outgrew their dimensions. The very rooms that once made you feel unworthy could no longer contain the version of you that learned self-respect. You used to think the right people would like you if you just worked harder to be understood, but real ones don't need explanations. They feel your frequency. You no longer beg to be seen because you understand something deeper. What's meant for you recognizes you. Alignment isn't about forcing access. It's about becoming so authentic that only truth can find you. That's what made you magnetic. Not noise, not performance, but peace. Imagine a radio dial. Everyone's broadcasting something. Most are stuck on static, yelling for attention. But you tuned yourself to a higher frequency. You stopped broadcasting pain and started transmitting purpose. And when that happened, the people tuned to manipulation lost the signal. That's why they can't reach you anymore. You're not on their wavelength. They're auditioning for attention. You've already been cast in your calling. That's the real difference. They still believe power comes from being liked, from being loud, from being seen. But you've learned that true authority whispers. You don't need to compete for spotlight because you've become the light. You don't chase, you attract, naturally, quietly, effortlessly. And it's driving them crazy because they can't copy calm. They can't fake authenticity. They can't manufacture what you've become by surrender. Now they call it luck, but it wasn't luck. It was release. You didn't get rewarded for doing more. You got rewarded for doing less of what wasn't aligned. You walked away from fake circles, manipulative opportunities, and low-energy connections. And the moment you said no to what drained you, life started saying yes to what was designed for you. That's not magic, that's mathematics. Subtract what's not meant for you and watch what multiplies. They'll never admit it, but your peace makes them uncomfortable because your existence exposes their dependence on approval. You're moving differently now, not seeking, not proving, not performing, just being. And that being threatens every system that survives on validation. You've become the kind of energy that doesn't chase connection, it commands it. You no longer walk into rooms hoping to be noticed. Rooms shift because you walked in. So when people wonder how you suddenly got access, smile, because what they call sudden was really the reward for every silent boundary you set, every no you spoke, every mask you refused to wear. You didn't network your way up. You aligned your way forward. You didn't seek permission. You stepped into purpose. That's why your energy feels untouchable now. It's not approval-based. It's purpose-fueled. And that's what confuses them. They're still out here auditioning for acceptance, memorizing lines for a play that no longer fits your script. But you've already signed the contract with your destiny. You don't need applause to validate what alignment already confirmed. That's the secret they'll never decode. You didn't win by being chosen. You won by choosing yourself. Number 6. You won the war. They couldn't see because you played a game they didn't understand. They thought you were doing nothing, but you were doing everything that mattered. That's what haunts them now. While they were busy performing for visibility, you were training for mastery. They mocked your patience, called your stillness weakness, and laughed at your discipline, not realizing they were laughing at the very blueprint that built your success. They thought you were naive because you didn't react. They called you passive because you didn't chase. But you were learning the unseen game, the one where energy moves before anything physical does. You see, they were addicted to control, always plotting, forcing, pretending, but you were studying something they couldn't measure: frequency. You were learning how emotion affects manifestation, how energy precedes evidence, how alignment bends opportunity. You realized early that no matter how much noise people make, nothing real moves until the vibration matches. While they were trying to manipulate outcomes, you were mastering the laws that govern them. Power built on strategy can be taken. Power built on energy is untouchable. You played by that rule. You learned to plant your seeds in silence and trust that the universe doesn't forget effort. It simply waits for divine timing. They couldn't grasp that. They were hustling for speed. You were aligning for precision. They wanted attention. You wanted accuracy. And in the end, accuracy always wins. Imagine this: two people climbing a mountain. One runs fast, loud, arrogant, racing for applause. The other moves slow, steady, observant, studying the terrain, adjusting with every step. The first gets tired halfway up. The second reaches the summit without making a sound. That's you. You didn't need a crowd to validate the climb. You had clarity about where it led. They call it luck now because it's easier than admitting you were right. They can't understand how you kept rising without selling out, how you glowed without gossip, how your presence grew louder while your words stayed few. What they never realized is that every quiet no, every moment of restraint, every time you didn't engage in chaos, it was spiritual strategy. You weren't ignoring them, you were conserving power. They chased the spotlight. You became the source of light. That's why they're stuck in cycles that no longer involve you. They were chasing illusion while you were mastering intention. They thought you were waiting. You were actually aligning. They thought you lost momentum. You were synchronizing with divine timing. You learned that the unseen laws always outrank the visible ones, and once you understood that, nothing could touch you. Imagine your life like a chessboard. They played checkers, fast, loud, predictable. You played chess, strategic, quiet, unseen until the checkmate hit. They spent years reacting while you spent years positioning, and when the moment came, you didn't need to prove anything. The universe moved pieces they didn't even know existed to put you exactly where you were meant to be. They mocked your surrender because they mistook it for submission. They didn't know surrender was the highest form of power. You let go of the illusion of control, and suddenly control was no longer necessary. The things you used to chase started finding you. The rooms you used to dream of entering started opening naturally. Because that's how the unseen game works. When you stop fighting the flow, the current carries you further than effort ever could. They mastered manipulation. You mastered magnetic energy. That's the difference. They forced outcomes. You attracted alignment. They spoke empty words. You moved in silent certainty. You knew something they didn't. Everything external is a reflection of the internal. So you stopped fixing the outside and started upgrading the inside. And when your energy leveled up, your reality had no choice but to follow. Now they're exhausted from pretending. They've run out of performances to hide behind. And you're calm. You're in rhythm with life. You've learned that the quietest person in the room often has the deepest power. Because they understand that unseen forces move mountains long before physical hands touch them. You've become that force. You've become the proof that energy outlasts ego. So let them keep studying optics and shortcuts. Let them keep calculating while you keep calibrating. Because every time they mock what they don't understand, they feed the very energy that keeps you rising. You mastered the game they can't even see, and that's why they'll never win it. Number 7. You outgrew the circus, and that's why the ringmasters hate you. You can't lose a game you stopped playing. That's what they don't get. You didn't beat their system, you made it irrelevant. While they were fighting for positions in a fake hierarchy, you quietly walked off the board and built your own field. They were obsessed with being seen. You were focused on being real. They chased the illusion of success. You chased the truth of self. And now they're exhausted from pretending while you're glowing from peace. They call it winning when someone gains followers, clout, or a seat at the table. But you looked at that table and realized it was plastic. The food was fake, the smiles were scripted, and the conversations were empty. So you flipped the script and built your own table out of authenticity and purpose. And now those same people are peeking over the fence, trying to understand how you made it work without selling your soul. They studied the algorithm, you studied yourself. That's the difference. They were mastering optics while you were mastering alignment. They were networking with masks. You were networking with the universe. They kept adjusting themselves to trends that die in a week, while you built a foundation that'll outlive them all. They were sprinting for relevance, but you were walking toward legacy. Imagine this, a circus full of performers trying to outshine each other under artificial lights, and you're the only one who stepped outside and realized the real sun was still shining. That's what you did. You stopped performing and started existing. They thought stepping back meant you were falling off, but in reality, you were just detoxing from their delusion. You were unlearning the noise they worship. You were remembering what peace sounds like. They can't understand why your life feels effortless now, because theirs runs on anxiety. You're not drained from maintaining appearances. You're not afraid of missing out. You're not enslaved to approval. You stopped trading authenticity for acceptance. That's what destroyed their system, your refusal to kneel to it. They tried to make you play chess in a rigged game. You realized the board was an illusion. You understood that the system was never about fairness. It was about control. It rewards loudness, not depth. It promotes fakeness, not truth. And while everyone else was auditioning for roles in a crumbling play, you were rehearsing for reality. That's why you look untouchable now, because they can't manipulate someone who doesn't need their validation. They're still in the maze you outgrew, still chasing applause from people they don't even respect, still curating their lives for attention that vanishes overnight. Meanwhile, you're moving in silence, and every step you take is making noise they can't ignore. They think you're lucky, but luck had nothing to do with it. You built your freedom with discipline, clarity, and a ruthless rejection of fakeness. You didn't beat them, you outlasted their illusions. You refused to participate in the rat race because you realized the prize was poison. You didn't want to win their fake game. You wanted to live your real life. You stopped trying to prove you were enough and started being enough. That shift broke every rule they thought was sacred. Now they're glitching. Their algorithms can't explain you. Their metrics can't measure you. Their gossip can't touch you, because you're not operating on their frequency anymore. You're building from something timeless. Truth. And truth doesn't chase, doesn't compete, doesn't crumble. You didn't beat the system. You walked out of it, and that's why you're free. And that's the truth, chosen one. They can study your every move, but they'll never recreate your soul. You've outgrown imitation, outlasted betrayal, and now you're standing in your own light, untouchable and undeniable. If this message hit your spirit, press that like button if you haven't already. And if you're still not part of our family, make sure to press that subscribe button, because your support helps this mission reach more souls who are walking this same silent path of power. Stay grounded, stay glowing, and remember, the universe never forgets the ones who rise in silence.